Nice to meet you too, Tim. Oh, good. Well, I'm honored to be here. Thank you. It's really become even more common in the U.S., particularly with weight loss. I think in the U.S., massive weight loss is probably more common than it is here in Korea. But that patient population has increased the number of patients that I see for both augmentation and mastopexy because they typically have almost no volume after they've lost, 100 pounds or more, and they always have a significant degree of ptosis. So it's in the 22 years that I've been in practice, I think I'm seeing more augmentation mastopexy patients now than I was at the beginning of my practice. That's probably, it kind of depends. So if you're talking about the massive weight loss population, they're almost all augmentation mastopexy. In the non-massive weight loss patients, probably about 75% just mastopexy and about 25% augmentation and mastopexy. Yeah, same, and that's why I think it's really, really important to show a lot of photos. But yeah, a lot of times I think you have to try to talk to them about what the alternative is. Because I think a lot of patients think that they're going to look just fine with just implants. And they say, no, I don't want the lift, I just want to have the augmentation. And unfortunately, I don't have a lot of patients to show them because we just don't do that. We have some illustrations. I try to show them sort of their own anatomy in illustrations about the relative position of the gland and the implant. And if those two things are not aligned with one another, the shape is going to be, really terrible. So it's just a matter of communicating with them and saying, I believe that the scars are going to be justified because you're going to have a beautiful shape. And if you can show them a lot of patients that have really an ideal breast shape with beautiful volume, then the scars tend to not be as big of a problem. But at the end of the day, it's up to the patient to decide. And I have had patients that have said, no, I'm not willing to have those scars. And in those cases, I typically just recommend they not have any surgery at all because I don't want to put implants in and have them be unhappy. Yeah, I do. There are some patients that I will stage. About 90% of mine I will do in a single stage. The ones that I will stage are patients that have a very, very severe degree of ptosis. Often, again, the massive weight loss patients, the post-bariatric surgery patients. But for the typical the typical patient for me is a woman maybe in her 30s who's had children and maybe has a little bit of postpartum deflation and ptosis. Those patients I will do in a single stage. I'm very careful though. My opinion of how to do the operation in one stage is to set the volume first. So I know some people do the mastopexy first and then add the implant. I do it the other way around. So I will add the implant and then I'll sit them up in the operating room and then I'll confirm my markings. And sometimes you have to change them. Sometimes, we've gotten pretty good at planning for the markings, but you really want to confirm once the volume has been set that your markings are accurate before you commit to them. And since I've been doing that, revisions are pretty uncommon. Yeah, I think if you can get a nice shape with the perireal or mastopexy, obviously that's going to be the best result because then you get both. You get an improved shape and you avoid the vertical scar. I use an inferior pedicle, but it's really, honestly, it's a central pedicle because I'm not elevating the gland off of the muscle. No, I still do an inferior pedicle. And I actually have in my talk, I did a case last Friday, a week ago. Okay. And so I took photos of each stage and I've incorporated them into my talk. But I still do, I insert the implant through a lateral incision and then I leave the rest of the medial pedicle, the medial aspect of the inferior pedicle, excuse me. And again, because I'm preserving the central component to it, I just don't see. It is. Mentor has the largest market share in the U.S. It's primarily It's primarily two implants in the U.S., Mentor and Allergan. I know Allergan has withdrawn from Korea after ALCL. So we still have, interestingly, when you mentioned Silamed, so there's a company called Sientra in the U.S., which was a distributor for Silamed implants. And then once Silamed went away, Sientra started producing their own implants. They built a manufacturing plant in the U.S., but I don't use Sientra implants. I've been through an evolution of implants in my practice. I started with Mentor with the original memory gel, and then I spent some time with Dr. Randquist in Stockholm, and I learned a lot about. He doesn't say anything just based on his opinion. He has clear numbers. He gets his patients to follow up for long term. I mean, 13-year follow up in a breast augmentation. My patients don't keep coming back that long, but in any case, so I started using form stable implants. I started using the Allergan style 410, and then I used the memory, we call it memory shape, I think you call it CPG here. And
I was really happy in certain patients. Patients with a tight lower pole.
Patients where I felt like I needed the implant to help provide some shape because the natural breast shape wasn't ideal. And then ALCL hit, and there was a huge scare across the US, and a lot of my patients now will come in and specifically say, I do not want a textured implant. So now we're left with, okay, what do we use? So I actually went back to Allergan and I started using their Inspira. They have the cohesive and the soft, which is a form stable smooth round. And I found that it gave me a lot of the same benefits as the shaped implants did without having texturing or the risk of rotation or malposition. And so I used them, the Allergan product, until Mentor came out with the Boost, and now my practice is almost entirely Boost. Because I think while there is no perfect implant, every implant is going to have pros and cons. I think the benefits of the Boost implant in all patients are significant. I think the risk profile is very low. Even capsular contracture, which I know people say, well, I prefer the Motiva because of the capsular contracture. I think there are other ways to reduce the risk of capsular contracture and still have an implant that's going to form a nice physiologic capsule that provides long-term support, but not a contracted capsule. And the distribution of volume and the improvement of rippling and wrinkling, all of those benefits to the Boost, I find to be very useful for me. And I think it's become the mainstay of my practice. And it just gives me the greatest degree of control. If a patient wants a full upper pole, I can give her that with a Boost implant. If she wants a softer upper pole, I can go with maybe a moderate plus profile and do a dual plane and still give her that outcome. So it's one device that is applicable to a very wide array of patients, including patients that need a mastopexy as well. And that's why I use it almost exclusively now.